Weekends always feel a little different to me. There's no alarm rushing me out the door, no long list of things I have to finish right away. Everything moves a little slower. And on mornings like this, I like going to the local market with my niece. Not because it's the fastest place to shop, it definitely isn't. It's crowded, a little noisy, and there's always something happening around you. But that's exactly what I like about it. You hear people calling out prices, motorbikes moving past the stalls, neighbours stopping to talk, and vendors arranging food they grew or raised themselves. From the outside, it may look a little chaotic, but once you spend time here, you start to notice that everything has its own rhythm. I came to buy a few things for dinner, some vegetables, a little beef, and one ingredient that might look unusual if you didn't grow up eating it. I'll show you that in a minute. One of my favourite things about traditional markets is that no two visits ever feel exactly the same. Even if you come every weekend, the market somehow feels different every time. Some mornings, the vegetable stalls are the busiest. Other days, everyone seems to be gathering around the fresh meat. Sometimes it's the smell of grilled food that catches your attention first. Sometimes it's simply the sound of people greeting each other. It almost feels like the market wakes up with the people who come here. What I really love isn't just the food. It's the atmosphere. You can hear conversations happening in every direction. People asking about prices, neighbours catching up after not seeing each other all week, someone laughing, someone bargaining, someone carrying baskets that are already full before they've even reached the middle of the market. It reminds me that shopping here isn't only about buying ingredients. For a lot of people, it's also part of their weekend routine, a place to slow down, to see familiar faces, to take their time. And before I even realised it, we had already wandered into the freshest part of the market. This is usually the part of the market where I start paying more attention. A lot of the vegetables here were grown not very far away. Some of the people selling them are also the same people who planted them, picked them, and brought them here early in the morning. That may sound simple, but I think it changes the way you look at food. You're not just choosing between two bags on a shelf. You can ask where something came from, when it was picked, how fresh it is, and sometimes the person selling it can tell you exactly how they grew it. There's also a kind of trust that comes from shopping this way. People remember which stalls they like. They come back to the same sellers. They ask for the same cuts of meat, the same vegetables, and sometimes the seller already knows what they're looking for. I like that. It makes buying food feel less like a transaction and more like part of a relationship. We started with the vegetables, but I already knew the most interesting thing on my list would be waiting somewhere deeper inside the market. I brought my niece with me today. She doesn't care much about prices, or where the vegetables came from, or what we're going to cook later. She notices completely different things. The toys hanging above one stall, a brightly coloured basket, a small snack she's never tried before, and every sound seems to make her look in a new direction. Walking through the market with a child changes the way you see it. Places that feel normal to adults suddenly become interesting again. A row of vegetables becomes a wall of colours. A crowded aisle becomes something to explore. And even a simple shopping trip feels a little less routine. I like that she gets to see this kind of place. Not just supermarkets, not just food wrapped in plastic, but people selling what they grew, raised, or made themselves. There's a lot for her to look at here. Clothes, household things, toys, fresh food, almost anything a family might need. But the next part of the market is usually the one that gets the strongest reaction from people who aren't used to shopping this way. That's where we were heading next. This is the part of the market that can feel the most unfamiliar if you didn't grow up shopping this way. The meat is displayed right in front of you. There are no sealed packages, no printed labels, and no long refrigerated aisle to walk through. You can see exactly what you're buying. You can ask for a specific cut, a little more fat, a little less, a smaller piece, or just enough for one meal. For people here, this feels completely normal. Many families still prefer buying meat this way because they know the seller, they know when the animal was prepared, and they can choose exactly what they want. It feels more direct, less polished, but also more personal. Of course, I understand why it might look surprising from the outside. Traditional markets don't try to hide where food comes from. Everything is right there in front of you. And today, I wasn't looking for the most familiar cut of meat. I was looking for something much less common in Western kitchens, but very normal in mine. The last thing I wanted to buy today was pork stomach. If you're watching from another country, this might not be something you see very often. For a lot of people, it's probably one of those ingredients that looks unfamiliar at first. But for many families in Vietnam, it's just another normal trip to the market. I actually like cooking with it. When it's cleaned properly and cooked long enough, it becomes tender with a little bit of chew. It's really good in soups, stir-fries, or simply served with fresh herbs and a dipping sauce. One reason I like buying it here is because the pork comes from nearby farms. People around here often know where it was raised, and compared to buying it in the city, the price is usually much better too. That's one thing I really appreciate about markets like this. Sometimes you're not only buying food, you're also buying something that still feels connected to the place where it came from. I don't think that's something you notice right away, but after coming here for years, it's one of the reasons I keep coming back. After that, the rest of my shopping list felt much more familiar. Some vegetables, a little beef, and a few things I already had in mind for dinner. I usually don't come to the market with a very strict plan. I know what I need, but I also like looking around first. Sometimes the vegetables look better than I expected. Sometimes the seller has a cut of meat that gives me a completely different idea for the meal. That happens to me more often than I'd like to admit. Buying food here feels less fixed than shopping from a list in a supermarket. You can change your mind, ask questions, buy only a small amount, or decide to make something completely different once you see what's fresh that day. For the beef, I only needed enough for one meal. And with the vegetables, I chose what looked fresh and easy to cook. Nothing complicated, just ingredients that could become something warm later at home. I think that's one reason I enjoy weekend shopping like this. It gives me a little time to think about the meal before I actually start cooking it. By then, our bags were getting heavier, but my niece still had plenty of energy to keep looking around. By this point, I had already found most of what I came for, but my niece was still nowhere near ready to leave. She kept noticing things I probably would have walked past without thinking. A toy hanging above one stall, a bright plastic bowl, a small smack near the front, and every few steps she found something else that seemed completely new to her. I think children experience places like this very differently. For adults, a market is practical. You come with a list, you compare prices, you think about what to cook. But for her, it felt more like exploring. Every corner had something to look at. Clothes, kitchen tools, household items, toys, food. Almost everything a family might need is packed into the same space. That's one of the things I like most about traditional markets. They're not separated into perfect sections. Life is all mixed together. Shopping, talking, eating. Children following their families through narrow aisles. It can feel crowded, but it also feels very alive. And even though our bags were already full, we kept walking for a little while longer. Sometimes people ask me why I still come to traditional markets, when supermarkets are cleaner, quieter, and probably more convenient. Honestly, I like supermarkets too. They're easy. Everything is organized. You can finish shopping quickly and head home. But I don't come here because it's the easiest option. I come because it feels different. Here, food still has a story behind it. The vegetables came from someone's field. The pork came from a nearby farm. The woman selling herbs might have picked them herself before sunrise. And somehow, knowing where my food comes from makes me appreciate it a little more. Not because it's perfect, but because it feels real. Maybe that's something that's becoming harder to find. Places where people still know each other, where shopping doesn't feel rushed, and where a normal morning can quietly become part of your weekend memories. By the time we left, we had everything we needed for dinner. Nothing unusual, just vegetables, beef, and pork stomach from a market close to home. Maybe that's why I still love weekends like this. They remind me that simple routines can still feel special.